Okay, today I thought once it's close to Thanksgiving that we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about Thanksgiving arrangements. And a Thanksgiving arrangement can be any type of container you want. Usually if we're in class, I do some type of cornucopia to show you because we've already talked about history in the class and then it ties in. But I needed to do some gifts for some people for Thanksgiving. And I found these wooden boxes on Amazon actually, and they came in 4, so I thought that was perfect. So I went ahead and ordered them, and they finally came. I've already done up a couple of them just so I could show you the finished product. You'll see the finished product, but each one kind of looks a little bit different. So we'll go ahead and set this off to the side, and then we'll get started. Now, when I do my arrangements, I like to start with greening. Not everybody does. It's kind of your personal preference on that. So you've got to make sure that you have your good pair of floral shears. And what I did was I went to Sprouts this time, and they had bunches of like roses, mixed colors. Some of them were all the same. I got the mixed. And then they had mixed bouquets of like chrysanthemums, and in the mums, some of them had some lilies, some had some ostromeria, and then they also, which I thought was great, they had a mixed bunch with different types of greenery in it. And I got one bunch of greenery. Some of these containers that I did, I actually went out and picked some greens out of my yard to help incorporate those greens. So if you don't want to buy greens and you have greens in your yard or your neighbor and you know them, go ahead and ask if you can clip some, and then you don't have to worry about buying greens. But I'm going to go ahead and start with my greenery. I really like to use eucalyptus, so I was excited when they had that in there. And there's some myrtle in here also. So this isn't generally what I would use to start my green, but it can work. So I wanted to show you if you had anything that looked more of a straight up and down line filler, which this would be, then you can still break it into pieces and green that way. Now, one of the most common mistakes that I see my students doing when we green is I say, okay, now you're going to start on the sides, but you're going to work in towards a point. So in here, I'm not setting my greens. If I take my floral foam out, and I already prepped these, but you don't want to set your greens right on the corner. You want to come inside and then have them go out. So that's what I'm doing on this. I'm also taking the lower leaves off so that it can stick into my floral foam. To add height to it also, you can also take a branch and stick it inside. So now I've added height, I've covered my outside, and I've lightly greened. I didn't want to heavily green right off the bat because I do have some seeded, or not seeded eucalyptus, silver dollar eucalyptus that I do want to incorporate later. So now I've just lightly green. You can still see some floral foam, and that's okay right now. The next step is you gotta figure out what kind of flowers you want to have inside your arrangement. And I have an assortment from roses to sunflowers to lilies, so on and so forth. So I've got to kind of plan out the placement of my flowers. Some people will start with their focal, their mass flowers. Some people won't. It's, once again, to me, it's more personal preference on how you want to start. But if you start down below, then you've got to kind of work in. So I try to start with my flowers that are going to be more in the center first and then work out just for ease of placement. I'm actually starting with my button mums first. And kind of staggering them around. Adds my height. have a little bit. This is more of what's called a cushion mum. So we have our button mums, we have our cushions. There's a lot of different types of chrysanthemums out there. And I'm going to leave these in a bunch together. I'm not breaking those apart. So I have more of a mass center. And then I'm going to take my Ostromeria. Now, Ostromeria, once again, I think I've talked about this before. When you first get it, it doesn't look too great. But once it stays out, it's going to be one of your main flowers that's going to outlast the container. Now, once again, always be turning and looking. I think I'm going to take my lily here, and I'm going to place it more in this section. Your lily will open up. If I could really get in there, maybe I can, but these pollen grains are going to make a huge mess. So if your lily is open and you can, go ahead and take those out. But the rest of mine aren't open, so I can't quite do that. And then that's going to just open up very nicely and fill in the area. I'm going to add some roses in next. And then to add kind of a different color, these are another type of chrysanthemum. These are more your daisy mums. I'm going to flip those up and add them in. You don't have to individually take them out, but you can always leave them whole if you have a place for them. These two, I went ahead and left together. They're on there. I have some carnations, yellow, so I'm going to add those in now. The rule of thumb is odds. But sometimes you don't have to. If you know the rule and it works and you don't have to have the odds, then you don't have to. I try to, just for me personally. I try to stick to that rule. So now I'm going to kind of start to go back in with my eucalyptus. And place this in. There's different types of eucalyptus that you can get. There's seeded eucalyptus. There's silver dollar. There's other types that have a skinnier, it's called gunny. There's spiral, which I do have some in this mix. So here's my spiral eucalyptus, so we can take some of this and add that in also. I like to take it off a little bit at the base because you always want to have a good insertion point to this. And it smells really good when you cut that up. The only problem is if somebody's allergic to eucalyptus. that can happen. So then what you're going to do is, as always, kind of turn it around, see if you can add or change placement of anything. Now, you can always add material in when you're done. Right now, on sale, you can get little pine cones if you want, and you can incorporate those into your arrangement. I have these little picks, they're wire picks, hence they have wire on it, and they're on a pick and they're green. And then you can always tie things up with them. You don't have to add anything in if you don't want, if you just want flowers. But if you want to add something else in there, you can always do that. You can do ribbon. So I just add a little pine cone. I probably would go ahead and go get another pine cone and stick it in too. I just wanted to show you that process. The other thing is, I wanted to show you, and I'm going to show you on this other arrangement that I have done. And you can get pretty ribbon, and you can always add ribbon to anything that you would like. As you see here, I went ahead and I had a little pumpkin that I stuck in there too. But what I would like to do on this arrangement is add a little bit of ribbon. Some florists will actually just take this straight from here and figure out what side you may want this on. And they'll just take like a skewer or whatever, and they'll cut off what they need, and they'll just push it into the foam until it will stick. I personally like to take my wired pick and give it a good twist. And then I like to insert mine, so that way that I know in transport that it's nice and secure. Then we haven't talked about ribbon or bows or anything in class yet, but this is one thing that I actually love, working with ribbon and bows, and not everybody does, but I really do. So I'm going to go ahead and show you something simple you can do with ribbon. You can just take a piece. These would be considered your tails. And then you can just make a simple three-loop bow. So you'll just take some ribbon, depending on how large you need it, will depend on how much you do it. What I usually do is I just kind of experiment with it on the roll before I cut it. But what you're going to do is, with the side facing out that you want, you're just going to group it, a small one. You're going to bring it up again. So this one's a little bit bigger. Okay, and then let me redo that. I pre-cut this one. So small, medium, and then large. So this should work out now. There we go. Okay, so now we just got a simple little bow to add in. If you want, you can always hot glue this. You can take floral tape. Once again, we haven't discussed floral tape yet. So I'm just going to real quickly off camera, I'm going to get a little bit of floral tape. Hot glue. because I already had it plugged in. So now you can find your spot. I like to kind of fluff my bow out a little bit, move it to either side. And then now it just gives it a different look. The bows, anything else that you add to it is called value added in the floral market. So I'd probably go ahead and find my scissors. You can cut them at angles, you can do that V shape, whatever you like to do. But there's one. I also have my little pumpkin on this one. This is another one that was done. I have a couple of pine cones in here. I have my sunflowers, some roses. And then one last one that I've done. So I have, once again, I have a couple of pumpkins in there just to kind of dress it up a little bit. So these are something that you can give to people for Thanksgiving. Have them on your table yourself. Go out, try to find a container yourself, get some flowers, and just practice. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. Go ahead and email me. But I would love to see if you end up doing this. I'd like to see what you did. Okay, thank you.